Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me. Today's edition of the Daf Yomi is Daf 110, Amad B, and Wim Bava Metzia, Tractate Bava Metzia. So let's go. Some of Rabbi Chanina Meima. Rabbi Chanina thought to say that the land remains in the orphan's possession, as they are currently in control of it, and therefore the responsibility falls upon the creditor to bring proof. So what's the footnote? Yisuma Uva'al Cho Bishvach. If a creditor seized the field from orphans, and the land had been enhanced through labour, and the orphans claim that to have enhanced the land themselves, while the creditor says that their deceased father is responsible, the burden of proof falls upon the orphans. And soon it is according to the opinion of the Rambam. Other authorities maintain that it is the creditor who must bring proof, unless the field was the designated repayment for the debt. And that's from the Mosai in the Torah Rosh Hashanah rules. Under the first opinion, Rambam Seif Mishpat Hilchot Ma'av over 21:7 Shulchan Aruch Rosh Mishpat on the 15:5. A certain elder said to them, this is what Rabbi Yochanan says, the responsibility falls upon the orphans to bring proof. I said that. The other footnote was, orphans and a creditor. Behind the various explanations and rulings with regard to this issue lies a fundamental dispute between the early commentators with regard to the standing of orphans vis-a-vis the deceased father's creditor concerning the enhancement of property. The latter is given as payment for the debt. The Rif, Tosfot, and the Ravid maintain that such orphans are considered as if they purchased the land from their father. Consequently, they are treated in the same manner as anyone who purchased land from a debtor, and then has that land seized by the creditor, and are not entitled to payment for the inhabitant of the land in the interim, even if it resulted from their labour. An exception to this would be if the field was set aside as designated to pay for the debt, in which case they are considered like one who enhanced another's field without asking the owner first, who is entitled to receive some compensation. So from Tosfot, the Gemara here is somewhat difficult. The Gemara here is somewhat difficult to understand according to this explanation, as these commentators are forced to explain that the entire discussion is relevant only in the case of fields set aside as designated repayment. By contrast, Rashi, the Ramban, and the Rashba maintain that the orphans are considered as if they received the land as a gift from their father. Accordingly, the creditor has rights only to the land itself, but not to the enhancement. Except for any enhancement that resulted from natural causes, not due to efforts expanded by the orphans. The passage here fits well with his explanation, although certain difficulties arise from another passage must still be addressed. See Bracha 52a. The Rashba discussed the issue and offers a resolution to these problems. The reasoning behind the first explanation is apparently that orphans replace their father in all respects. Consequently, just as the creditor has the right to take an enhanced field from the father as payment for the debt, he has the right to take an enhanced field from the orphans. For more on this, see the Ravid in Tosfot 15a. And the second explanation, the commentary attributed to the Ritva states that the orphans are comparable to recipients of a gift, and they too, as they too have no one from whom they can collect their loss, as opposed to a buyer who can return to claim his expenses from the seller. What is the reason for this? Since the land stands all ready for collection, and as though it has already been collected and is in the creditor's possession, consequently the responsibility falls upon the orphans to bring proof. Rabbi said, we learned a similar halacha in the Mishnah in Bava Metzia 24b as well. With regard to a tree planted adjacent to a city, such a tree must be chopped down in any event, regardless of what preceded it. If the city preceded the tree, then he is not entitled to compensation, but if the tree was there first, he receives payment for the tree. If it is uncertain whether this one was first, Safek Zer Kadam, all trees must be planted at least 25 cubits away from a city, while kalb trees and fig trees must be positioned at a distance of 50 cubits. If trees were found closer than this, and the city preceded the trees, they are chopped down, and the owner is not entitled to compensation. If the tree came first, it is chopped down, but the owner is paid. If it is uncertain which came first, he does not receive compensation. According to the Maggid Mishnah, this halacha is enforced only in Eretz Yisrael. Shulchan Aruch Rosh Mishpat 155:22 in the comment of the Ummah. Well, that was fair. The owner of the tree cuts it down, and the people of the city do not give money to the owner. Apparently, since this tree is standing to be chopped down, as it is chopped down regardless of whether it or the town was there first, we say to the owner of the tree, you must bring proof to support your claim that the tree was there before the town, and only then may you take its value. Although the tree is currently in his possession and has not yet been cut down. So too with regard to this document recording the lien on the land, and it is ready for collection, it is considered as though it has been collected, and the responsibility falls upon the orphan to bring proof. In the case where the orphan brought proof that they indeed enhance the land, Rabbi Hanina thought to say, when do we remove them? We remove them by giving them part of the land according to the value of the enhancement. The Gemara comments, that is not so. As you remove them by paying them with money, what does that mean? If a field was set aside and says to be paid for a loan, and the orphan brought proof that they were responsible for its enhancement, and the creditor seizes the land, he must compensate them either for the enhancement or for the expense incurred in enhancing the field, whichever is less. The Umar Saitentor states that this halacha applies only if the debt did not amount to the sum of the field and the enhancement, but if it was equal in value to both of them, he does not have to pay them anything. The later commentators reject this view. In a case where the field was not set aside as a repayment, the orphans may pay off the debt to the creditor by giving him money or giving him the land and claim the value of the enhancement by keeping a portion of the land itself. And that's the Ram Sefer Mishpatim Hilchim Ma'av 21:7 Shechan Erech Shemit 155 and 15:6. In a case where a wife's marriage contract, the creditor or buyer, when the recipient is obligated to pay for the enhancement, he pays for it in the form of money, not land. As derived from a statement of Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman says that Shmuel says, in 3 cases the court appraises the enhanced value for the parties involved in enhancing the field, and they are paid in money, said that, rather than being given a portion of the property, and these are they. The first is a firstborn son who makes payment to an ordinary non-firstborn son. A firstborn is entitled to a double portion of the enhancement of inherited property after the father's death, only if it became enhanced of its own accord, such as a tree that grew. If the enhancement marked a change in the items, such as a fruit that sprouted, and certainly if it came about as a result of labour, the enhancement is evaluated and must compensate the other older brothers. This is a case where 2 sons, one firstborn and the other not, have their field from their father. Before it is divided, they both work and hence the field. When the time comes to divide the field, the firstborn son receives a double portion, must pay his brother for the enhancement that the latter contributed to the former's portion. The payment is given in money rather than land. The second case is that a payment taken by a creditor or the payment of a marriage contract by someone who is obligated to reimburse orphans. A creditor or widow collects land from the orphans of the deceased debtor or husband, respectively. He or she must pay the orphans for any enhancement that they made after their father's death. The payment is also given in money rather than land. And the third case is that of a creditor is obligated to purchase, a creditor collects the debt from lands that was sold by the debtor. He pays the money to the purchaser for the enhancements generated by the purchaser but does not pay him land. Marina said to Rashi, it is saying that Shmuel maintained that a creditor must pay the value of the enhancement to the buyers. And what type of enhancement is there as given to a buyer according to Shmuel? But then Shmuel say a creditor collects even the enhancement, not only the land itself. And if you would say this is not difficult, as here is referring to enhancement that is so great that it reaches the shoulders. So what does that mean? This phrase may be understood in several ways. Most commentaries interpret this to mean produce that is fully grown and ready to be harvested and carried on the shoulders of labour. That's Rabbeinu Hanana, the Rif, and the Rashi. Rashi qualifies this interpretation, stating that the produce is clearly not completely ready to be harvested, as if that were the case, it would not be named to death at all. A second interpretation is that the phrase referring to any produce that will eventually be harvested and removed from the land, and calculating excludes enhancements of the field itself, such as enrichment of the soil or growth of its trees. And from the Tosfos Bava Kama 9795b, Rabbeinu Tam Sefer Yasha. And third interpretation is that it is referring to enhancement that is the result of manual labour rather than enhancement that occur without intervention. And the Rashba cited Rabbeinu Tam, the Ravid cited Rav Hagon, meaning that it is large enough to be carried away on porter's shoulders, whereas there it is referring to enhancement that does not reach the shoulders that is still difficult. But aren't there incidents every day where Shmuel would collect everything on behalf of a creditor, even enhancements that reach the shoulders? The Gemara responds, is not difficult. And referring to a case where the debtor owed him the amount of the land and the enhancement combined, and therefore the creditor does not leave the buyers with anything, whereas that involves a case where he did not owe him the amount of the value of the land and the enhancement. Since he has taken more than than the sum to which he is entitled, he pays the bias for the improvement. The Gemara asks, and if he did not own the amount of the value and the enhancement, it was stated that the creditor gives the buyer money and removes him. This works out well according to the one who says that even if the buyer has money, he cannot remove the creditor by paying his debt in cash, as the creditor has a right to claim land. According to this opinion, it works well, but according to the one who says that if the buyer has money, he may remove the creditor by paying him cash and keep the land for himself, and say to him as follows: if I had money prepared, I would remove you from the entire land. Now that I do not have money equivalent to the value of the entire land, since you must repay me for the enhancement, at least give me a plot of earth in my land corresponding to the amount of the value of my enhancement. And the Gemara responds, here we are dealing with a case where the debtor set aside this land as designated repayment, apoteki, from the Greek hupotheki, meaning mortgage or property with a lien. The sages sought in the phrase apotehikai, meaning on this it will stand, i.e. this property is under a mortgage agreement, but usually a precisely defined property used as a guarantee for a certain payment. When a property became an apotheke, the one responsible for payment has the right to pay for this property before paying on the creditors. It was agreed between the two parties that the property with an apotheke stated was the only guarantee for payment of the debt, and the debt could not be collected from other properties for the creditor. As he said to him, you shall be able to collect only from only this land, but no other. Consequently, the creditor wants to take the entire land, as his lien applies only to this field, and if it turns out that he has other claims, he will be unable to collect them from elsewhere. The Mishnah. In a case of one who receives a field from another to cultivate it for one sabbatical cycle of 7 years, culminating with a sabbatical year for 700 dinars, the sabbatical year is included in the tally. So what does that mean? Hashvias min ha-minyan. Based on the Gemara in 109a, Rabbeinu Yonatan of Lonel states that although it is prohibited to grow anything in one's field during the sabbatical year, since the recipient may use the land for other purposes, it is still considered to be in his possession, despite the fact that he is unable to work the land during that year. If you received it from him to cultivate for 7 years, if one rented or received a field to cultivate for 7 years, he may use it for 7 years, excluding the sabbatical year. But if he took it for a sabbatical year, the sabbatical cycle of 7 years, Shavua, its term includes the sabbatical year. And that's in the Bava Metzia Daf, Hilchot Kiot 8.3, 700 dinars. The sabbatical year is not included in the number, and he may keep the field for an additional year to take the place of the sabbatical year, during which he could not work the land. The Tana addresses a different issue. The law of payment of workers. A day laborer collects his wage from his employer all night, following his work shift. The Rosh cites the halacha as proof that according to Torah law, a laborer must work right up to the night, and therefore he may be paid until the next morning. Laborers who do not literally work all day are considered as hourly laborers, while an hourly laborer a day laborer must be paid the following night, and if his employer neglects to do so, he transgresses the prohibition of the wages of a high laborer shall not remain with you all night until the morning. A night laborer may be paid the entire day, but if he was not paid by evening, his employer transgressed the mitzvah of, on this day you shall give him his wages. Nowadays, when laborers do not work until nightfall, they must be paid by sunset. And that's in the Bava Metzia Daf, part of Hilchot Kiot 11.2, Shulchan Aruch Shemid between 39.3 and the comment of the Ramah. Sachir shows a worker who was hired to work for several hours during the day must be paid that day, and if he worked at night, he must receive his wages that night. That's explained by Rav in the Gemara. Rambam Sefer Mishpat, Hilchot Kiot 11.2, Shulchan Aruch Shemid 39.4, collects his wages all day, all night, all day. With regard to a weekly labourer, a monthly labourer, with regard to a worker who is hired for a longer period than a day, if his term of employment ends in the day, he must be paid that day, but if it ends at night, he receives his wages that night, in accordance with the opinion of Rav. Ram Sefer Mishpat, Hilchot Kiot 11.2, Shulchan Aruch Shemid 39.5, a yearly labourer, or labourer for a sabbatical cycle of 7 years. If he left upon the completion of his work in the day, he collects the wages all day. If he left at night, he collects his wages all night, all day. The Gemara. Tani Rabbanan. Minayin nischir yom shegilver kol halayla. The sages taught from where is it derived concerning a day labor that he collects his wages at night. The verse states the wage of high labor shall not remain with you all night until the morning. Leviticus 19:3. This indicates that he was paying by the morning, and he has therefore not transgressed the prohibition of delaying the payment of wages until that time. And from where is it derived concerning a night labor that he collects his wages all day? As it states, on the same day you shall give him his wage in Deuteronomy 24-15. The Gemara asks, but why not say the opposite? Either a night labor must be paid all night, or the day labor receives his wages all day. And the Gemara responds, obligation to pay a person's wages incurred only at the end of the period for which he was hired. The sages taught from the indication of that which is stated in the verse, and the wage of a high labor shall not remain with you all night. No telling, do I not know what this means until the morning? As this is the meaning of remain with you all night, telling. Why must the verse state until the morning? It teaches that he transgressed the prohibition of withholding payment only until the first morning alone, but does not transgress this prohibition another time for any further delay. We will ask, from that point forward, what is the halacha? I've said, although one no longer transgresses the prohibition of delaying payment of wages, one violates the prohibition of do not delay. Bal tashcheh. This is a quasi-biblical formulation of a rabbinical law, and the sages decree that any further delay of wages constitutes a violation of a rabbinic prohibition. The verse from Proverbs is cited as proof that the Torah itself condemns one who puts off his credit to his false claims. See Rashi and later commentaries for more on this point. Tashlum la'achar zaman. Delayed payment. If an employer fails to pay his employee on the first day following the completion of the work, he's violated the prohibition of the wages of a high labor. It shall not remain with you all night until the morning. If he considers delayed payment, he does not transgress the mitzvah a second time. He is still obligated to pay immediately, and he transgresses the rabbinic prohibition of do not delay as well. I'm going to say from his part in Hilchos Kiyyut 11:5 to Hilchos Mitzvot 39:8. Relating his wage, Rav Yosef said, what is the verse from which it is derived? Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again, and tomorrow I will give, when you have it with you. Proverbs 3:28. And the sages talk concerning one who says to another, go out and hire workers for me. Both of them do not violate the prohibition of delaying payment of wages if they fail to pay immediately. This one, the employer is exempt because he did not hire them for himself, and strictly speaking, they are not his hired workers. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you a very good day and peace in Israel. All the best. Bye.